it sucks that this has to be said, but honestly, there's no more sugarcoating it. Pokemon has a problem. I'm sure within the past couple of weeks, just about every serious Pokemon fan in the world has heard of and taken a side on the matter of Pokemon Sword and Shield. Either you love it because you're excited for a new generation filled with new Pokemon and a new region to explore, or you hate it because of the countless unexplainable flaws that the games seem to have. Either way, Pokemon Sword and Shield is just one generation of Pokemon. And the reality is that these games are more than likely still going to be fun to play in and explore because, let's be honest, as fans of Pokemon, most of us love new generations mostly because of the battling and the new Pokemon. And, at least in my opinion, these are some of the best designs for Pokemon that have ever existed. Just take a look at this little purple bastard. And of course, there's Wooloo, a Pokemon who's managed to unite both the fans who are still very excited for these games through a cute and cuddly Pokemon, and the angry fans through the sheer memeability of this little sheep. While I personally may not like the way I see the game going, I can still understand the people who are just excited for something new, even if it comes at the cost of most of the best aspects of Pokemon, like Mega Evolutions, Z-moves, and the ability to catch them all. And yes, I'm even talking about Pokemon like Standler and Basculin. If you ask me, Pokemon Sword and Shield is only a symptom to a bigger problem. A problem that most fans are becoming painfully aware of just now, me included. And that is that Game Freak just doesn't seem to care about what we have to say. If you're over the age of 12, that is. See, even in the surveys that they've sent out since this controversy started, they make perfectly clear that they are specifically interested in the opinions of those under the age of 15. But it's not just this that proves to me that Game Freak doesn't seem to care about a huge aspect of their fanbase. See, I know I can't be the only person who's noticed the pretty obvious decline in quality that Pokemon games have been suffering from. Things like beloved features being erased for no reason at all. Animations being lazier now than they were on the N64. Even when comparing games like Pokemon Stadium to Pokemon Let's Go, people have been pretty quick to point out just how lazy these animations have gotten. Here's a couple of examples if you don't already believe me. And let's not forget about the scarce amount of new Pokemon that have been added in the past 2 generations, totaling at just 160 new entries. Comparing this with just Generation 5, that added 156 Pokemon alone, reveals just how little effort is put into creating new Pokemon nowadays. They are constantly rolling these features back, most likely so that they can go ahead and re-add them in later on. A business tactic that has been employed for years by companies like EA and the companies that make annual sports games. If the constant standard of lowering the bar isn't enough to convince you that Game Freak doesn't care about your feedback, then consider how little of the features fans have begged for over the decades has actually been integrated into Pokemon. For years, fans have begged for things like multiple save files, difficulty settings, good rivals, and skippable or at least shorter tutorials. The list goes on and on. And don't take my word on it, just look at the literal hundreds of videos the Pokemon community has produced over the years. And it's not like these features are hard to incorporate. I mean, fan games have been doing them for years before Nintendo snapped them all to dust. In all honesty, the only fan-requested features I can ever remember Game Freak adding were the character customization and 3D models, neither of which have been incorporated in a way that has really blown anyone away. I mean, we get better character customization and 3D models in games like Animal Crossing, Zelda, and even Super Smash Bros. I'm not saying Pokemon games haven't still been fun, and to Game Freak's credit, they've managed to come up with some pretty creative and awesome features that fans didn't even really know they wanted until they had them. Things like Mega Evolution, Super Training, Pokemon following behind your back, and mythical Pokemon events, none of which are going to be making a return to Pokemon Sword and Shield. And hey, these features are cool and all, but the point is that Game Freak has had a history of ignoring their fans. even those of us who are most vocal and most willing to spend some serious cash on everything from games to plushies and cards. It can't be understated just how large of a portion of Pokemon fans are over the age of 15 nowadays. By Nintendo's own admission, this portion of players is only growing with each new game's release, and every online poll I found has led me to believe that most modern Pokemon fans are older than 15. So why does it feel like Game Freak doesn't care about a massive portion of its fanbase? Much less about the portion of their fanbase that has the most money to spend. And hey, if you don't believe me, go ahead and look up the surveys for yourself. And just take a look at the footage I myself filmed at the Pokemon Centers in Tokyo only 2 months ago. Over 75% of the people in these stores are above the age of 10. Hell, my niece and nephew only have Pokemon games because I bought them not only a 3DS, but also copies of X and Y. Do you want to guess which one of us went on to buy copies of every single new game since X and Y? Spoiler alert, it wasn't the people who can't just hop in their own car, drive to the store, and buy it for themselves with their own money. Honestly, it feels like Game Freak thinks we're all suckers who are gonna buy each new rendition of their games simply because it's Pokemon. But today, more than ever, it's looking like that's all about to change. Pokemon fans around the world seem to be showing apprehension in pre-ordering or even buying this new Pokemon game. Pokemon Sword and Shield have been a disappointment, but I honestly can't say I'm surprised. Especially when it's become so obvious that Game Freak is trying its very best to stray away from Pokemon. Since 2012, Game Freak has dedicated more and more of its already small studio to creating new IPs. This only serves to further bewilder fans due to the obvious standard of passion and style that's being applied to new games like Town, a game that graphically blows Pokemon Sword and Shield out of the water, even though Pokemon has been in production for over 3 years. But what exactly did we as fans expect? That Game Freak would actually make changes and listen to fans, even though they're already raking in millions of dollars on each release and re-release, despite the obvious downgrades in quality? Those of us angry fans are only upset because it seems like every new Pokemon game is sold on the promise that the next one will be better, or that the next one will be more challenging, and that this year's version was just made for kids. When in reality, none of those promises are based in anything Game Freak or Nintendo has ever officially stated, instead coming from hopeful and disappointed fans. The cold hard truth is that the only, and I can't stress this enough, only way we're gonna get Game Freak to do what the fans want is to skip out on this next Pokemon game, and don't buy it from stores. If Game Freak actually recognizes our frustration and makes a change, then great, and if they don't, maybe Nintendo will be willing to ship production of these games to a company that's willing to imbue Pokemon with the much needed passion it deserves. And look, I get it, if you honestly can't not play this new Pokemon game, I understand. Just try not to buy it new and give your money to Game Freak. Buy it secondhand, like I'll probably end up doing at some point. The only way we're gonna get Game Freak and Nintendo to realize how upset we are is to hit them in their wallets and painfully remind them who pays them the most money and attention. So consider this my call to action or whatever. Don't be suckered into another false promise, and don't think that Game Freak will make any real change unless we force them to. Well, anyway, thank you for listening to my rant. I swear this isn't my normal type of content, but I appreciate you listening anyway, even if you're about to hit the dislike button. I would really appreciate if you guys could leave a comment, even if you disagree with me, just so I can get a feel for what you guys think. I myself love Pokemon more than any game franchise I can think of, and that's just why I felt like I had to get this off my chest. If you're interested, I have several other Pokemon themed videos, things like theories and retrospectives, so feel free to take a look at those if you are interested. With that, I'll leave you with my classic reminder to not be a sucker and keep on loving good stuff.